How can you invest and make money in today's real estate market? Welcome to the Successful Investor Show, where we talk with successful real estate investors, business owners, and busy professionals on their journey to wealth. They share their best ways and advice to make massive gains in today's market. Make sure you are subscribed so you never miss an episode. Now, here is your host, Doron Nissim.
Welcome everyone to the Successful Investor Show, where we talk about how to passively invest and create passive and generational wealth through real estate and businesses. I'm your host, Doron Nissim, and I've been investing in real estate for the past 15 years, and I love it. So today I have the pleasure to have Lorraine here. She's been investing for 25 years, probably more, and she started in Wall Street, trading mortgages-backed securities. And since then, she passed to do real estate as an agent, as a broker. She's an appraiser, and she loves doing old houses, actually, flipping old houses and making them nice and beautiful. She's in self-storages. She's in syndication. She's doing so many things. So I'm so excited to have you here, Lorraine. And I want to hear your story. So how did you get into real estate?
So I got into real estate back actually when I was in college. So I started on the mortgage-backed securities trading floor in Manhattan back in the mid 80s. And when I graduated college, my best friend said, "Hey, let's go get our real estate license for shits and giggles, if I'm allowed to say that." And I said, "Okay, fine." And I did. I never really practiced in New York because I worked in Manhattan. And then I read The Art of the Deal, which I would read it on the train driving into Manhattan. And that kind of really got me into real estate to the point that I was working full time. And then I started doing appraisals on the weekends because I love it. So at this point, I've done real estate more than half my life.
Wow. I love Out of the Deal from Trump. I love that. Yeah, that book. And yeah, it's a great transition from Wall Street to real estate. After you read the books like that, you want to move to real estate for sure. And so you were doing real estate in New York, or what happened?
So I worked on the trading floor, and then I did appraisals on the weekends. So I didn't really start investing until we moved to Atlanta. So we were on a corporate relocation to Atlanta from New York with General Motors. And I said, okay, great. I want to be a stay-at-home mom. And that lasted 90 days. And I was going bananas because we didn't know anybody. So I went from working a full-time job and doing appraisals on the weekends to being home at the time with my daughter, who wasn't quite 2 yet. And I was going bananas because I went from one extreme to the other. And I actually called the real estate agent that sold us our house. And I said, hey, I think I want to do real estate. And Georgia and New York had reciprocity. So I had my license transferred. And then I got into the sales piece of it for a little bit because then I had my other daughter. And I'm like, okay, this is too much. I want to raise my kids. But in the meantime, we had started doing some rentals. We had started doing some fix and flips. We did a couple. And then in 2003, after my girls were in school, is kind of when I really jumped back into full-blown sales as a realtor. I'm an associate broker. We started fix and flips. I was helping investors buy at the courthouse steps here in Atlanta. And then we did a big guru bus tour weekend, and I kind of became the niche person in Atlanta. So I created a whole business with out-of-state investors that were investing in Georgia. They wanted to invest in Atlanta, and I helped them acquire the property. I managed the renovation and did all the design choices. And then I put the property on the market for them. So essentially creating my own listing inventory. And that's it. I got the bug and I'm like, wait, they're making this and I'm making this. It's time to get investing. And then that's when we got into fix and flips in 2013. And, Atlanta's a hot market. And so trying to do fix and flips right now is just very challenging.
Right.
So, like you mentioned, I got into a self-storage mastermind, and we've got a property under contract right now that's a boat and RV that's value add. So hoping it'll close at the end of the month because I'll get an equity position. And
Nice.
it's real estate is my drug of choice.
Yeah, I know what you mean. Yeah, real estate, and the good thing about real estate that you have so many niches, so many things that you can do. You can go through from single family to multifamily, commercial, offices, Airbnb, self-storage. There's so many things to do. And like I say that you usually need to focus on one thing, but still you can diversify and do multiple things with multiple partners in different states, and really, like, I mean, eat the cake and have it full. That's what I love real estate. It's really it's an amazing business. So yeah, you were talking about that you started as a realtor, as an agent, and you were finding those amazing flips for out-of-state investors, and actually doing the whole thing for them, selling it and giving them all the profits. I mean, yeah, but I love it that you're smart enough to say, well, this is amazing, and I want to do it myself. Yeah.
Exactly. Yeah. And and the fact that they all trusted me. At one point, at the height of doing all of that, I was managing 5 renovation projects, big
Wow.
renovation projects, adding a second story, adding square footage. And that's, a lot of so I got really good at that. So then when I was like, okay, let's go do this. And, I had never really understood and had never really known about hard money. So once I learned about hard money, I'm like, oh, this is great. We can go do this, right? That's kind of what started it for us.
Yeah.
And to the point that, I mean, my favorite renovation was in Europe. I renovated my grandparents' house. So if you want to talk about a long distance renovation,
Right.
there you go.
International flips. Wow. That's scary.
I didn't flip it. I kept it because I'm all about legacy and legacy properties. So I didn't flip it. I have it, but we more than doubled the value of the property because it's in a killer location.
Wow. Wow. I mean, you have guts. You have some guts doing renovation international. Yeah, that's nice. Very nice. Yeah. And I love the fact that you're like went out of your way, and actually you talked about doing a second story on a single family house, doing an expansion of a property. How does that work?
So we call them pop the top. And so a lot of the renovations that I was doing to maximize your ARV, your after repair value, and your margins, in 2014, 2015, 2016 here in Atlanta, that's what we were doing. We were taking your typical, maybe 1,100 square foot house, and then adding a whole second story. So then, of course,
Wow.
you've got the contractors and the architects, and you've got all of that, and making sure that the walls can support the second story, supporting the walls, and building out that structure. And so I did, actually they were for my clients at the time. I think I did probably 5 or 6 of those projects where we added a whole second story, and that's what everybody was doing in order to maximize their profit.
Wow. Wow. I love that strategy. I've never done this. I did so many flips, but it always seems so scary to take the roof off and build a second story. But it's a great idea. I always had it in my mind. And even here in where I am, South Florida, you have all those not ocean front, but intercoastal properties where they're like 1950s, 1960s, very old houses. And you have to the side a new construction, something amazing that's 5,000-6,000 square feet. I'm like, I need to take off the roof, but maybe not.
If you have, look, the key is your team. If you have the right people in place, then, of course, there isn't anything that never goes without problems.
Right.
But at least if you have the right team in place, and you can, solve any problems that come up in a timely manner, you should be fine.
Wow. Yeah, definitely. The team is very important. So I wanted to ask you, in all your career until now, was there like an amazing deal that you did that you want to tell us about? Like the best deal?
My favorite deal, it was not a huge deal, but my favorite deal was a small deal that everybody told me not to do. And it's funny because I just pulled the house up a couple of days ago. We had bought a house that was built in the 50s, your typical 1950s ranch, right?
Right.
That 3 pit bull dogs were living in the house by themselves.
Oh,
It was a mess. The owner had been moved to assisted living, and the house was a disaster. I mean, I opened the front door, and a friend of mine that I took with me was out in the front lawn because the stench was just so bad. So I went in and opened the windows, kind of ran in and out, and it was a 2-1, and everybody kept telling me, you don't do a 2-bedroom. You need to add a bedroom and a bathroom. I said, I can't make the numbers work if I add a bedroom and a bathroom. Like the comps aren't there. It was an area that was starting to regentrify. But we bought the property for $48,000.
Wow.
And we bought it for 30, we bought it for 48. We put in, it was about 33 or $34,000. And then I sold it for 125.
Nice.
We had like I'll never forget. We had 5 showings the first day, and the one agent called me and she's like, hey, do you have any offers? And I said, no, but I've had a lot of traffic. She's like, I'm going to write an offer right now. And they came in at full price. We were in and out of the property in 90 days from the day we bought it to the day we sold it on the other end. And everybody's like, I can't believe that you sold it to a 2-bedroom, 1-bath. And at the end of the day, one of the things that I've always been passionate about is creating affordable housing or workforce housing, or something that, like my kids now are trying to look to getting into a house, and they're like, we don't know how we can afford it.
Yeah.
And so that kind of became the model for the rest of my fix and flip business. Everything I ever did that house was 980 square feet.
Yeah.
And everything I ever did was between that one and about 1,100 square feet. That became my brick bungalow. That became my model. And everybody's like, oh, but you can add a second story. I said, I don't want to do that. I want to get in, get out. I don't want to deal with permits, because dealing with permits, in the city of Atlanta, or even in the outskirts of Atlanta, I was in a different county, but it was still Atlanta. It's a nightmare. I said, I don't want to hold it up, right? I want to get in, get out, make my money. So if I make less margin, that's okay. But if I hold it for less time, I also have less holding costs.
Right.
I wanted to move on to the next one.
Yeah.
So that was my favorite project, and that was the fastest one we've ever done.
Wow. It's a great flip, and I wish all the flips were like that, in and out, 90 days, hit and run.
Exactly.
I love those, and yeah, definitely. So I mean, I love that story. But do you have like a worst deal that you can share with us? Something that we really want to hear about and want to learn from you?
Absolutely. So back in 2013, as I mentioned, we did a guru boot camp. Mm-hmm. We went out to San Antonio, Texas, and we were on the bus tour, and there was a property that, they took us to go look at the houses and all that. And there was one that we really liked, and the guy's like, oh, well, who's going to put an offer on this house? I said, I will. I said, because the numbers make sense based on what I was told. Now, I was going based on what the realtor who was there told us the numbers were.
Wow.
So we made a lower offer, not by a whole lot. We knew what the renovation budget was going to be, more or less. And then I came home from Texas, and I started running my own comps. And the realtor had said that the ARV was 250. When I started running comps, I was looking at the ARV was more like 225 to 230.
Yeah.
So we had time to withdraw. So I went back to her and I said, look, we're withdrawing our offer. I don't know where you're getting these numbers from, because I can't make them make sense. So we withdrew our offer. It was a foreclosure. The bank came back and told us to resubmit. So I think we had originally offered, I think it was like 195 or something like that. And I think we went back at like 180 or 182. And I said, okay, this makes sense. And for anybody that's out there listening, you need to make sure you have reliable boots on the ground. Definitely. We found a contractor. I told the realtor I would pay her to manage the project. I said, look, this is above and beyond. I'm a realtor. I understand. This is above and beyond, somebody buying a property or listing a property. I will pay you to check on it and manage it. She said, no, I don't want you to do that, because you're buying it with me. And then if you use me to sell it, blah, blah. Well, 14 months later, with hard money, with the contractor who we had hired, she never stopped by the property. She never looked at it. I would ask the contractor for pictures. I was getting pictures of the same wall in the same room. We had bought some materials. We had gone back for another part of the boot camp on asset protection. And he asked us to buy the materials. So we bought the bathtubs, the water heater, the toilets, the fans. We bought a bunch of stuff, left it in the house. Well, I started questioning when I told my husband, I said, that's the same wall in the living room. Like, we're not getting the full picture. that was my big red flag. Then all of a sudden, because Lowe's had the My Lowe's card back then, I saw items getting returned.
Wow.
I was getting the emails and I'm going, wait, those are the faucets we bought. And so my husband calls the guy. He's like, yeah, it was the wrong size. It didn't fit. I had to change it out. Long story short, we fired him after, let's see, we closed in, I think it was November, end of November. It's like March. It's still not done. I sent someone else out there. We fire him. He took all the money. He took the hot water heater out of the house. He took the toilet. He took everything out. And he tried to pick up the stove and the refrigerator from Best Buy. And I called, like my gut said, Lorraine, get on this. I called Best Buy. I got the guy and I'm like, look, we have a washer and a dryer that we're not keeping. Like we need to keep it there because we got someone else to finish the job. Because the guy tried to go the next day and he tried to pick up our refrigerator and our stove. And they told him no, like we had returned it. So 3 contractors later, hard money for 14 months.
Wow.
We then 3 realtors later as well. We then dumped it. We got a cash offer for 200. We lost 70 grand out of our pocket.
Wow. It's a painful lesson, $70,000 lesson, but that's how you learn. And I had the same experience here in Florida. I lost much less, but still it's very painful and it's frustrating. And yeah, but it's a good lesson because whenever you do a property out of state, and I always tell it to people that I talk to people that I train for real estate, if you're going to do something very far from you, you have to have a third party, even an inspector, pay them to go there, take pictures, do FaceTime with you. Nowadays, we can do FaceTime.
Yeah, we didn't have FaceTime back then, but that was the whole thing. That's why I knew, and I prepared myself as best as possible.
Right.
Because I thought we had, the realtor was there. She's part of the, she was part of the weekend, the event, the whole 9 yards. And then I wound up firing her and I got someone else that I had a friend of mine who drove from Houston to San Antonio.
Wow.
And she says, look, I will go. And she's like, Lorraine, there's dead bugs on the floor. This isn't done. That doesn't. So then she staged it. And because we were actually in London with the high school when they're like, we've got an offer at 200. I said, I don't care. Wow. I don't care that it was 20 grand below. I was like, I just need it out because for 14 months, I was under so much stress that I didn't care at that point. We're like, we just need to be done.
Yeah. Yeah. And you're definitely right. When you have something that's bleeding, you want to, take it out. You want to stop the bleeding, just sell the property and get out and move on to the next one. I guess this one wasn't for you. Yeah.
No, it wasn't. And my husband said, I will never do another project I can't drive to.
Well, let's say maybe, but because sometimes you live like, let's say in Atlanta, the market is very high. It's very hard to find good deals. So you have to buy something out of the area, out of the state and things like that. But I mean, there are things that you can take, that you can do to mitigate the risk. And that's actually my next question for you. In this business today, in today's market and in the business, what do you do to mitigate risk in your business, in the real estate?
That's pretty much what we've stuck to. If we can't drive, like that, our next flip I think we did was about 4.5 hours away, was in South Carolina. And our daughter was there. So 1,000%, right? Make sure you have your boots on the ground. Make sure you have reliable people. Right. And like we just haven't done anything that far anymore. Now, will I do it again? Sure. I also now have a much bigger network than I had back then. We were just kind of getting started. Now I have boots on the ground in multiple states if I need them, with people that I trust. And so it's getting those trusted partners, in place, and people that you can rely on. And don't be afraid to pay them, because in the end, it will be worth every penny.
Right. Definitely. Having a good network of people that you can trust and that you can rely on, it's a very good advice for people that want to do real estate farther than where they live. Yeah, that's great. So I want to move next to the 4 or 5 round of questions that are going to help our viewers to be more successful. So what is, if you have any, what is your 3 best success habits in your business or in your life?
My 3 best success, I'd say, and that was the one that kind of stumped me a little bit because I'm like, okay, the number one is for me, integrity is everything. So it's if you don't know the answer to something, don't be afraid to tell somebody you don't know the answer to something. I mean, when I was managing all those projects and I have those investors that they never saw the properties, they were in Massachusetts, California, Las Vegas. If I didn't know the answer, I told them, I don't know, but I'll go find out. Right. So just
Right.
always be honest and upfront because for me, is integrity is everything above all. The next one is building relationships. My entire real estate business as a realtor is all word of mouth. I don't pay for Zillow. I don't pay for realtor.com.
Amazing.
It's all, do I sell 100 houses a year? No. Do I want to? No. I'd rather invest in like do 25 and 25.
Yeah.
And it's building the relationships and really connecting with people. And then the other one is also truly seek to solve other people's problems. Like it really have a vested interest and understand, you know, on like the realtor side is what frustrates me is when a lot of times real estate agents are just so concerned
Right.
with putting a sign in the yard that they don't realize it doesn't always solve the seller's problem. So
Right.
it's seek to understand. I actually obtained 2 rental properties with no money out of my pocket during the pandemic
Amazing.
from somebody who just wanted to walk away.
Right.
And it's because I talked to this woman 7 years ago about selling her properties and I told her the truth. I said, "You're upside down." I said, "I can sell them if you want, but you're coming to the table with $20,000 or $30,000." And
Yeah.
right as January 2020 hit, she called me and she's like, "Do you remember that house? Do you remember those properties?" I said, "Yes." And I wound up buying one year and then the other one in 2021. And I have 2 amazingly cash flowing properties. And, they've increased in value. And we did them subject to creative finance and doing subject to deals are my favorite creative finance deals. And that was her
Nice.
thing. And I stopped and I asked her, I said, "What's going on?"
Mm-hmm.
Right. And I told her I knew she had a child in an older son, not a child in the military. I knew she had a grandson. And I asked her and she's like, "How do you remember that?"
Wow.
And it's because I took the time to listen to her like 7 years before,
Right.
and I hadn't talked to her that whole time. We were friends on Facebook and I have the creepers. I call them the creepers and the lurkers. Right. And like I said, out of the blue, I hadn't probably talked to her in probably 5 years when she called me and she's like, "It's time for me to walk away. It's just
Wow.
time for me to walk away."
Wow. That's amazing. Amazing. She called you after 5 years. Usually people or real estate agent or investors, they will follow up every month, every week, and they will do they will do the follow-ups to get in touch with the client. Now this client actually got in touch with you, but she liked you and you got to connect with her and listen to her, and that's why she wanted to work with you and not some other people. Probably that connected her. Yeah.
I mean, to give you an example, on the second property that I got from her, the first one she paid me to take over,
Wow.
which I was like, "This is crazy." And then the second one, I told her it's too far for me. And I did bring in some partners and we got on a Zoom call and she said, "What if I make 6 months worth of mortgage payments while you rehab it?" The rehab took me 6 weeks.
Wow.
That was infinite positive cash flow.
Yeah.
Right? Because we rehabbed it, then we did a cash out refi. We got our money back. We got a lower interest rate. We cash flowed even more. And we actually did sell it. We sold that property last August and we made 90 grand. And
Amazing.
if I were to make my commission on that, it would have been, when I bought it, I would have maybe made 3 grand. So was
Oh
it
my
worth
God.
it for me to listen to her? She was paying a mortgage of $890 a month for 4 years on a vacant property.
Wow.
So I saved her $900 a month. So for
And
her, it was a win.
of course. For her, it was a win. For you, it was a win. And I mean, when you get to connect with people and listen to them, and you're really looking for ways to solve their problems, you actually get to solve your own problems with that.
Mhm.
So,
Yeah.
so I always say give value. Don't try to sell, but give value to people. Give them more than what you're looking to get, and eventually it will pay off. And that's
Yeah.
what happened with this case. I mean, eventually it paid off. You made a lot of money on the flip. It wasn't that stressful because she kept paying the mortgage, and I mean, it's a win-win for everybody. I love
Yeah.
that. Yeah,
Yeah.
that's amazing. Yeah. So the next questions I have for you is, what is a good resource that you use in your business? Something that we can share with the audience.
What is a good resource? Networking. I love to network. I love to get out and going back to building relationships, meeting other people. And I'm always learning. Like I said to you earlier, if I see something that I'm really interested in, I go all in. And so I am constantly learning, whether it's reading a book or it's, attending a workshop. I'm always growing my knowledge base. And I tell everybody the day I stop learning is the day I died. So I can't say that there's one actual tool or resource that I use. I mean, I have resources that I use as a realtor.
Right.
But as far as like general on the investing side, that's my biggest thing is just getting out, networking, building those relationships, creating the network, really getting to know people. And this way, sometimes they may have an opportunity that they'll bring to me, or if I have an opportunity, I can take it to them. And I'm all about human capital.
Yeah. Yeah, and I hear that a lot, that networking is a good resource. And people have different ways to network. Some people do it online, some people do it offline in meetups and things like that. But
Yeah.
I mean, the general thing, the general rule is go out there, network with people, get to know people, and expand your network. And that's going to expand your net worth, actually. So,
Yeah. And I guess one tip, because like one small tip, when you're in a Zoom meeting, and I network online, I network a lot in Facebook groups as well. And this was a tip someone gave me, so this could maybe be a good one, is when you have your Zoom name on your screen, I have my name and then I have my phone number.
awesome.
And so I was in the fund Zoom that I told you about, and I had 3 people text me. They're like, "Hey, I would love to connect. I'm looking at creating a fund, would love to network." And so either put your phone number or your email address. So right there. So it's right there. So people can see it and they have a way to get a hold of you, because sometimes if you're in a Zoom with a lot of people, you don't have the opportunity to talk to people.
Right. Yeah, and people get shy, or they don't want to interrupt. They don't want to. But you put your phone number up there, and they feel comfortable to text you or get in touch with you. I love that. It's a great advice. Yeah, definitely going to use that one. All right. So my next question for you is, what are your 3 tips for making money today in real estate?
Oh, 3 tips. The first one is don't get emotionally attached to the deal. I mean, that might not be a way to make money, but it's definitely a way not to lose money. Real estate's all about the numbers. When you do real estate investing, the numbers either work or they don't.
Right.
So that's the first one. The second tip, look at secondary markets. Like, so Atlanta's really, really hot. So I've actually started looking at secondary and tertiary markets
Right.
where, okay, if it's a fix and flip, maybe my margins aren't as large, but I can still sell it. I can still sell it in a timely manner, and I can still make some money.
Definitely.
The third one, the third one, tips for
Yeah.
making money. One of the things I've started working on personally is starting to get to know more people that have capital so that I can have access to private money.
Okay.
And I think if you can do that now, you're not paying all the points that you're paying for a hard money lender. You can possibly get a lower interest rate if you're using a private lender as opposed to a hard money lender. And so, you can save some money there. But I think real estate right now is just crazy all over the place.
Right.
I know everyone is waiting for the
crash.
housing market to crash. I don't think it's going to. Now, I think there are micro markets. The other thing people need to understand, real estate is local, and it is hyper local. And,
Definitely.
I can see just in all the suburbs of Atlanta, like you have some where things are taking a little bit longer to sell. And then you have others the sign is up, and we're still getting multiple offers. So
Right.
understand that real estate is very niche down to where you are.
Yeah. Yeah, it's definitely, and I agree with you 100% on that, because people see those articles or online blogs and things like that. The real estate market is going this and that, but it doesn't mean that your specific market is actually going through that. And it's funny because I remember when I was living back in North Carolina, I was in Army Town actually, Fayetteville, North Carolina, and that through 2008 and 10, where the market was like nothing, everything was coming down, everything was crashing. That market was booming because of the military. They came back from Iraq, Afghanistan, but they had to keep buying properties. So real estate is really comes down to the local area, even the neighborhood or the street is where people wants to live, and they'll be willing to pay more for a property that they want to live there. So, yeah, I love that. Yeah. All right. So my next question for you is, and that's going to be my last one.
You're good.
So for people that has a full-time job, but they love real estate, they have their own house, but they want to invest in real estate. What would you say? What is your advice for them to make money in real estate or invest?
So yeah, I think that there's definitely a way that they can get involved. And I think if you're working a full-time job, don't go do a fix and flip unless you have a partner. You have to be there. Somebody has to be there. So my advice would be to either look at, joint venturing with somebody, right, where you have someone that can be there and be the boots on the ground, or being a private lender where you're lending the money and you're getting a return. So yes, you're still in real estate, you're the capital behind the deal.
Right.
One of the other things that am starting to look into, because I have a friend that teaches on it, is note investing, where you become the bank, where you don't have to physically be at a property. That's more of a passive income deal. You still have to do your due diligence, right? And you still have to make sure that all your numbers are aligned, but it's more passive. You don't have to physically be there.
Right.
And then the only one other one, which you'd have to go and check, you may have to go to the auction, would be tax lien or tax deed investing, depending on your state.
Yeah. Those are good places to put money, tax liens and tax deeds, definitely. And like you said, if you can be the bank and lend money on real estate, or even partner with people like you have the expertise, you're in the business, you're in the field, let's say, finding properties, doing the flips yourself, so they can lend the money to you and you can do the flip and give them the return, the profit, or whatever you.
Exactly.
Yeah. So yeah, I love that. So if people want to get in touch with you, they want to invest with you, they want to reach out to you, how can they find you?
So I am easy to find, especially since I'm a realtor. I am Lorraine Beato across all platforms. That's my Facebook, that's my Instagram, that's my LinkedIn. I'm not really on TikTok. That's not my thing. What else is out there? My website is lorrainebeato.com. My non-realtor website is lorrainebeato.com. And I also have a women's group that I started last September that's called Wired, WIRED, which is Women Investing in Real Estate Dominate. And so I have a Facebook group. So I cater to the ladies, but it's open to everybody. So, you can find us on Facebook. I created just a really small kind of landing page website, but yeah, I'm pretty easy to find.
Awesome. I love the Wired group, and definitely people can reach out to you and get some help. And also I wanted to ask you, what is your next goal? What is your next project? What are you working on right now?
So I am actually, in a self-storage mastermind. And I actually just got appointed to an advisory board with a tiny homes builder out of Florida. I got the letter today out of Florida that they've appointed me to their advisory committee. They think that I would be, a good fit for them. They're based out of Florida, and they are looking at creating tiny home communities to offer workforce housing, more affordable housing. And I'm really excited because, like I said earlier, when I did all my flips, pretty much everything I tried to do was almost, except for one deal, everything was under 200,000 back in the day. Wow. And so, yeah, those are my two things for right now, and
Love
learning
it.
about, creating a fund. So we'll see how that goes. But
Yeah.
that's further on down the road.
I love it, and definitely keep up. I'll reach out to you and see how things are going with the storage and the tiny community. I love the tiny community. I'm also working on a project here in Florida. I was very excited to have you here on the show, on the podcast. I got a lot of knowledge.
Oh, you're so welcome. It was my pleasure.
Thank you so much for listening to this episode of the Successful Investor Show. If you're enjoying this podcast, please feel free to rate, subscribe, and leave a review wherever you listen to your podcasts. That helps others find the show, and we greatly appreciate it. Once again, thank you for tuning in, and we hope you'll join us on the next episode of the Successful Investor Show.